Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Zooba here. Today, the liner notes will be Planet of the Apes, with music composed and conducted by Jerry Goldsmith, from the Project 3 Total Sound Stereo Original LP Soundtrack album. The liner notes were written by Charlton Heston, star of the motion picture. It's a commentary by Charlton Heston, basically. Actors usually regard the music scoring of their films with uneasy suspicion. The historical antecedents of music as the proper accompaniment for drama are rooted, if we discount the uncertain records of the Greek theater and the only slightly less shaky documentation of the Elizabethan pit musician, in the energetic piano of the silent Nickelodeon. In those days, it was generally conceded that the mute actors on the screen needed all the help they could get to project the flickering shadows of their emotions to the audience sitting wide-eyed in their folding chairs, and the pit pianist, one eye on the screen, dutifully and resourcefully supplied Offenbach for party sequences, Rossini for chases, Wagner for love scenes, and almost anything that occurred to him for dramatic confrontations. The tradition flourished and spread to the film studios as well. The gods and goddesses of the silent movie pantheon got their inspiration not from their muses nor even their directors, but from set-side musicians strategically stationed just out of camera range. A mother's tears, a father's righteous rage, a forsaken fondling's lonely terror, all were cued by busy fiddlers and eager accordionist pumping away behind the set. For many a silent film queen, set-aside musicians became a status symbol. It was sometimes necessary to have not just a stray cellist or so, but an ensemble which could even burgeon into a veritable orchestra. It got so you had to fight your way to the cameras through a forest of music stands. Then came sound, and the necessity for a little quiet on the set. At last, given the voice the silent screen had denied them, the actor might reasonably now be expected to provide all the emotion the scene required on his own. But a tradition is not upset that easily, and besides, the studios had all those musicians under contract by then. And as it turned out, a lot of the actors weren't too good at their trade anyway. So the contributions of the pit pianist in the theater and all those fiddlers and accordionists behind the cameras were merged and put on the soundtrack. And before you could say Dmitri Tiomkin, you had the full-blown symphonic film score, not to mention all these record albums. The modern actor is apt to be a little surly about all this. He suspects the composer and those eager fiddlers of second-guessing his performance. God knows we all miss in a scene now and then, but it can be very disconcerting to see your performance in the finished film garnished like cold salmon sprinkled with parsley by the composer. A dash of violin over this close-up, a thick squirt of trombone over that exit, and a sticky spread of muted string section behind a whole scene. From the actor's point of view, it is very rare to find a film score that does more than reiterate the emotional high points of a scene and underline the tempo of the editing, smearing over the whole film like marshmallow frosting. But when I heard Jerry Goldsmith was to score Planet of the Apes, I slept a little better that night. I'd liked his work in other films, and I thought he'd do well with this one. My competence to make a judgment in musical terms is very limited, of course. I once played a symphonic conductor in a film, but my diligent preparation for the part only sufficed to provide me with delusions of adequacy. I cannot therefore give you any learned dissertations on Mr. Goldsmith's use of the atonal scale to suggest the subservient role of man in the simian society of the film. His subtle use of dominant fifths to underscore the black comedic comment of Mr. Schaffner's direction is a value about which I am unable to enlighten you. I do know that Mr. Goldsmith's score helped us achieve something that was important to every scene, to remind the audience that we were in a time and place they had never known. The unearthly echoes of his theme reflect very accurately, I think, the lunar landscapes in which we shot the film. To me, the music colors perfectly the mind-bent milieu of Planet of the Apes. As an actor, I can ask no more. Charlton Heston.